Welcome to the Vibe Business Podcast, bringing positive business vibes to take you to a new level. My name is Anton Peruga, and after a decade of working with businesses, it's time to inspire the next generation, chatting to the most influential business people of today. In today's podcast, we chat to Anton Peruga, where we'll be discussing all things startup, motivational speaking, poetry, and more. Stay tuned and feel the vibe. 3 years since we met. Yeah, absolutely. It's been, you were brand new, starting up as a
fresh.
Yeah, fresh from the corporate world. Would you say?
The trappings of the corporate world.
Cool. So yeah, let's just start off with who you are and what you're doing right now, and maybe your journey over the last 3 years.
Sure. So, wow, the journey over the last 3 years. I don't think we've got enough time for that. Who I am. So, I'm the director of a company that works with children that are disengaged from education. It's an interesting question, though. Who are you?
Yeah.
It's something that I think we all have this sort of party line.
Yeah.
And this description of, what's the first thing you go to? Do you say, I'm a father? I'm a husband?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a Mancunian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of us, we go to our job, don't we?
Yeah.
And I think I'm kind of breaking away from that now.
Okay.
When you say, what is it that I do? I work with children. I teach. I'm also a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
As a mentor, it's something that you do naturally, and I didn't realize that. So that was really what my core intention was from getting into mentoring. So I set up a social enterprise, which basically set me on a journey to where I am today, and it's been a whirlwind, man.
Great stuff. It sounds like you're doing a lot of sort of variety, and you're not kind of putting your eggs in one basket, and I think that's probably not a bad thing to do either. I think people are advising that you focus on one thing, but I think it's good to do a variety of things, and it's not very common that you just love one thing. A person loves many things, so it's I suppose it's a good thing you're doing quite a few things. So let's. You said you work with the youth on your company Gain Focus.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that. So what is it you do with the youth?
So we get children back into education, children that are disengaged, children that are in touch with the youth offending service, tend to be from inner city areas in Manchester, and sort of areas like Wythenshawe as well, the areas with low socioeconomic status. What we do is we reintroduce them to life. They've been rejected from, on average, around 5 schools.
Okay.
Per child.
Right.
Yeah. So what we do basically is we get in touch with them at the stage where they've finally given up on the system. And we look to re-engage them in activities, positive activities, get them started on getting their life back in gear. The whole reason I set it up, it was based on the fact that I grew up in Moss Side in Manchester.
Okay.
And you get an organic understanding on systematic oppression when you live in an area that is, heavily socially deprived. The people that were statistics in the government sense were my friends.
Okay.
And me.
Yeah.
So I think growing up with like a sense of injustice around that, without really understanding what that was and really perceiving, being able to identify what it was, really informed my career as a teacher when I ended up qualifying to teach. And I could see how the same cycle that had led to my friends becoming statistics and going to prison, or suffering harm, neglect, not receiving the same opportunities that even I was receiving, which was a big thing for me to work out, was happening again. The cycle was revolving, and I realised it was a revolving cycle. Yeah. Every 5 years there's a new batch of school entrants. It's actually every year, but they're in secondary school for 5 years. Yeah. So 5 years goes by, They've been processed right the way through the system and then spat out the other side.
Okay. Yeah.
So my journey through teaching made me realize that there was a huge social need, and that social need was around children that were struggling to access a vital commodity, which is education, in terms of them being whole humans.
Cool. Brilliant. And do you find you've made a difference? I mean, it's only been 3 years, but like,
Yeah.
did you think?
Feels like about 10.
Yeah.
Feels like 30. The difference, we've definitely made a difference, but I'm not sure what the biggest impact has been. I don't know whether the impact on the children's lives has been the biggest impact or the impact on my life.
Right.
And me understanding the power of investing in people.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. 21 children.
Yeah.
At each stage that these children have been referred, every single one of these young people has been referred. The people who were referring them to us, which is the government or the school,
Yeah.
have said they're not going to like you. They're not going to like me. They're not going to like any activity. They don't like themselves.
Yeah.
They're not going to engage in this. They're not going to engage in that. It's
Yeah.
hopeless.
Yeah.
But we're going to give you a shot because you think you can do something.
Yeah.
And every single time we've engaged a young person, 100% engagement over 3 years.
Cool. That's amazing.
What that taught me is if you actually open the door and you're willing to meet people where they are, and there's applications, political applications in this, if you ask me, you will find a dialogue, and you'll also find the life force in that person and the thing that's actually trying to get them to the space where they're fulfilling their potential.
Yeah.
So yes, we've definitely had an impact on children, but those children have had a profound impact on the way I see the world.
Sure. That's amazing. I mean, to have that kind of impact. I think it's always great when you've got someone that's having a positive impact, say in community, and obviously you growing up has had a big part of that, and you're also turning it into some kind of entrepreneurial adventure and kind of the mix of two.
Yeah.
So everybody talks about passion and why you do stuff, but I think to mix the two and to have them both going, I think it's great. So positive impact for the community, and like I said, a positive impact for you as a person.
Thank you.
So just going on to you mentioned you do motivational speaking. So what does that involve? What are you trying to achieve with that?
Motivating people. Just quickly going back to why I set Game Focus up, because it's really what led me down the path of motivational speaking.
Yeah.
Is I understood for the first time in my professional career what my intention was as an adult in this society. Yeah, I understood that I wanted to make a difference to vulnerable young people.
Yeah.
Then, when I figured out what was successful in doing that, I realized that there's applications here. I was talking before about the political applications of opening the dialogue with every single person.
Yeah.
But there's applications here to professional life. Not just mentoring children to re-engage in education, but actually mentoring and motivating us adults.
Yeah.
When I quit my job of 4 years as sort of a corporate sort of high-end middle manager, I'd essentially set up a business for somebody else.
Yeah.
It was around the same time, so my son was 6 months old at the time.
Okay.
So he'd just been born.
Yeah.
I was married about 12 months.
Okay.
And everybody thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
The journey that you go on when you make that decision leads you to a point where you really start to understand the power of the mindset of the 9 to 5, the conditioning of that mindset.
Yeah.
When I took that jump, I mean, the job that I was doing was it wasn't a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It was a 7 to 7.
Right.
Yeah. So I was doing 12-hour days,
Yeah.
and I was doing that for 4 years, and I'd worked really hard, and I'd had this understanding, this message: the harder you work, the more hours you put in, the more people will notice you, the more money you'll earn, the more status you'll get, the better you'll do in your work.
Yeah.
The harder you work, the more structured you work,
Yeah.
and the more you work for somebody else, the better your life, the more gold in the handcuffs it turned out to be.
Yeah.
So when I took that jump, I was jumping away not just from a salary, a monthly salary. I was also jumping away from a set way of doing things, a way in which I discovered I'd been indoctrinated into throughout a whole journey of education. I'd been told this is the way to do things. You leave school, you go to college.
Yeah.
You go to college, you go to university.
Yeah.
You finish university, you qualify in something, you become a professional.
Yeah.
And once you're a professional, you're a grown-up, you're a professional until you retire.
Yeah.
And then that's that.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, when I'd taken that jump, I discovered that even though I was no longer in the trappings of the organization and I didn't have a manager that was questioning where I wanted to be, I was still getting up at exactly the same time, putting on my suit to go to a coffee shop, to work for 12 hours, to come back home.
Yeah.
So 3 months of taking this leap, my wife says to me, it's like you're still working at your previous place, your previous organization. And I was like, I had to reflect on it for a bit, because I was like, she's absolutely 100% correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's bang on. I've left the corporate world to live my own corporate reality.
Sure.
Yeah, away from those trappings.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to. So what was motivating that? What was driving that? And I realized after doing a lot of reflecting, it was fear. Fear was driving that.
Okay.
Fear of really and truly stepping outside of the box into reality.
Yeah.
Into that unknown zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Into that zone of my decisions lead to my success.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or failure.
Yeah.
I'd never been in that position before.
Yeah.
Yeah. My decisions had never been directly implicating the wealth and the livelihood of my family.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe an accumulation of decisions over a 12-month period might lead to a manager having a different perception of the sort of work I'd done, and therefore reviewing my salary or whatever. But it was never a case of one decision was going to have an impact on what next month was going to be like.
Sure.
But this is where I'd landed.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reality was, I was scared of that reality. Yeah.
Okay.
I was scared of that situation.
Yeah.
So 2 months in, that's as far as we've got. So
Sure.
2 months in, and I'd already discovered that my entire childhood and adulthood had been practice for a life that was completely different from this.
Yeah.
I'd just discovered that. And at that stage, that's when I understood that the way you motivate yourself is literally the number one determining thing on how much you're going to earn and how successful you're going to be.
Yeah.
So then I had to learn.
Yeah.
I had to learn. I had to practice on myself.
Sure.
Self-motivating techniques.
Yeah.
Being a bit more creative with my time.
Okay.
Instead of getting up at 6 and going to a coffee shop and working for a block of 12 hours, I was getting up and I was taking my daughter to school.
Yeah.
And then I was working for an hour on something specific. Then I maybe I was going to meet a client or a prospective client for a couple of hours in a coffee shop. Then I was going to do a bit more work.
Yeah.
I decided to start really reviewing what I was doing on a day-to-day basis and looking at how I can make my work and my vocation fit around my life.
Yeah.
So that was the next 12 months.
Okay. And you found a significant difference in them next 12 months compared to what you were doing before?
I failed miserably.
Yeah.
Miserably.
Cool.
It became it became a one side. I went from one extreme to the other.
Sure.
Yeah, I went from being completely determined and structured to being completely personal life orientated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everything that I did had to fit around my family life. Yeah, I wanted more time with the wife. I wanted more time with the kids. I wanted to go to the park instead of going to maybe sit down and do some emails.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for 12 months, I focused purely on making my work fit around my life.
Okay.
It was a failure. It was an absolute failure, but it's where I learned my second most important lesson. So the first lesson was discovered in the first 2 months, which was be more creative with your time and be motivated.
Sure.
The second lesson that I learned was failure is empowering.
Yeah.
If you fail, you're learning. And at every single stage, at every single failure, whether it was the way I approached my work and my personal life, or the actual work I was doing, and failures within that, with every failure, there's a vital lesson. A lesson that teaches you what to do next. It becomes a roadmap. So after failing miserably for 12 months at finding a work-life balance, I reviewed again, I reflected on all of those failures. On maybe where instead of taking my son to the park, I should have sent the email that would have secured maybe this new contract, or managed this new employee a little bit better. And I'm talking about this 12 months of failing at a time where my business grew substantially. So from the outside, the numbers, the scores on the doors, they look brilliant. And I was using the scores on the doors, I was using the numbers to justify my failure.
Wow, that's amazing. So there's a lot of guys out there who are trying to set up a business or think they want to set up a business. I say think they want to set up a business because what you think it is and what it becomes is two completely different things sometimes. But and people do it for different reasons. People are doing it because they have a passion for entrepreneurship. Some people want to do it for freedom. Some people want to do it from something they've been inspired by. And for those guys who are looking to start out, what advice could you give them just based on your experience?
Really and truly, don't do it. Don't do it unless you know exactly why you want to do it. And that why needs to come from the core of your being. You need to really believe in what it is that you want to do. And not believe that it's going to be a success. Not believe that it's going to get you the respect that you dream of. Not just believe that it's going to make you an independent person. These are all the results of the success. These are all the results of the thing. You need to believe in the activity that you're going to commit your entire being to for the next decade of your life. There is going to be, it's a journey of failure, as I said before. There's going to be failure after failure after failure. If you start this journey without a strong belief in the reason behind the journey in the first place, then you're not going to make it through all those failures. So be aware, be really aware of the reason you're coming into it. And make sure it resonates with the core of your being. Make sure it's something that you absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, want to do for the rest of your life. In one way or another. There's going to be times, months, years into the journey, where you put your head to your pillow. It's not like being at work. As soon as the end of your working day happens, when you're working for somebody else, it's the end of your contracted hours. You sign out, you go home, and you're at home. When it's your business, when the very success of the business feeds into the success in every aspect of your life, including your home, including your family, it creeps into your thoughts at the most intimate of times. It creeps into your thoughts just as you're putting your head down gently on the pillow and you're ready to have a nice long sleep.
Yeah.
I've got to pay that invoice.
Yeah.
I should have done this a bit better.
Yeah.
I didn't send that email.
Yeah.
Maybe your partner is aware, the person who you live with, whether that's your wife, your business partner, your friend, whatever.
Yeah.
In my case, it's my wife,
Sure.
who's also my business partner. We went into it together.
Yeah.
Maybe she's got a question for you.
Yeah.
Or maybe that business partner's got a question for you when you're having dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that time that is usually your time, your sacred time, your personal time that you take for granted when you're on a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 8. Yeah. You still end up with that allocated time.
Yeah.
That time becomes business time.
That's right.
And you've got to be prepared for that because that's a reality.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it, my advice to anybody, if you're going to do it, don't unless you really know why you want to.
Yeah.
What's driving you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's going to be the only thing you've got left at some stages.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that why's got to be there. I don't. Do you follow like Simon Sinek and stuff?
Yeah, sure.
He talks a lot about why.
Yeah.
In his book and stuff.
Find your why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of misconception with people. It's kind of there's a lot of wannabe overnight millionaires, and it's a very rare thing. I think
it doesn't happen.
You know,
there's no. There is no such thing unless you win the lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
There is no such thing as an overnight millionaire in business.
Yeah.
It does not happen.
Yeah.
You are going to fail first.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you have failed.
Yeah.
It means that you're going, the idea that you've got in your head, you need to manifest that in reality. Yeah. Reality's got different ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to be prepared for what reality is going to throw back at you.
Sure.
And if you're not ready for that with a core foundation of why you're doing it in the first place, you might as well not start.
Yeah. So you mentioned like your wife is your business partner.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've got no experience with that, but I mean, what is that like? That must be pretty intense because it's pretty intense just having to think business 7 days a week yourself. But obviously, when you're with your partner, you've got the rest of life and stuff with her. I mean, what's that like? Is it how stressful is it?
Let's just say it adds seasoning to the journey.
Sure.
And that seasoning would probably be pepper.
Yeah.
It spices it up.
Okay.
What does it do? What's the experience like? What I'd say is, and I speak to people who have set up businesses outside of their marriage. Yeah. And they talk to me about how it was really it was really empowering for the marriage to have that support network in place. Yeah. So they set up a business, the wife is doing something else, she's still got a job, or the husband's still doing something else. Yeah. Yeah. So when the business isn't doing too well, there's still an element of consistency and stability within the home. So when they come home, it's still a sanctuary. Yeah. Now, when you've got two people who are setting along this very difficult journey, we've already spoken about the failures together. Yeah. It becomes something completely different to those conversations I've had with people who have done it in a different way. There are no places to hide. Yeah. Honesty is the only way. Okay. Truth is the only way. Yeah. Because that person is on exactly the same journey that you're on. Sure. So you must trust that person. Yeah. To within an inch of your life. Yeah. You learn a lot about your marriage. Yeah. You learn a lot about your relationship, and you learn a lot about that person. Mm-hmm. If anything, I would say that it's kind of like an SES boot camp into entrepreneurship. Okay. Because we've been through it. We've seriously been through it. I mean, you don't realize how different you are from somebody until you work with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You think, oh yeah, we like the same things, we get on with each other. Mm-hmm. Oh, she's beautiful, he's handsome, great, but this is wonderful. Let's set up a business together. We think about the same things, we care about the same things. And then you start working with somebody and you realize, actually, my approach to work, which has worked for me in my career, is completely different to your approach. Sure. And those two approaches can possibly, support each other. But before you get to the point where it's supporting each other, you've really got to work out those differences. Mm-hmm. You've got to work out that that person is going to do what they do in the way that they do it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no real input from the other half on changing that successfully.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means that you've got to employ patience.
Sure.
You've got to employ a sense of forgiving and understanding that you've probably never had to do in your entire life.
Okay.
And hopefully, touch wood, as it's worked out for us, you grow from it.
Yeah.
And you grow stronger.
Sure.
And for us, it's gone from being a very difficult transitional period
Mm-hmm.
to growing into this amazing oak tree of support and empowering relationship.
Cool. No worries. So all sounds very positive. So
Really? Is that what you got from that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That's good.
I think you're a bit wary that your wife might watch this, so you're saying all nice words.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. But yeah, it's interesting because I know couples who have been in business together, or they even work in the same job.
Yeah.
And it at some stages it gets quite overwhelming because they might be around the dinner table and they should be chatting about family and stuff. Instead, they're talking about balancing the books or what the job's doing to them. So yeah.
So extend from the dinner table.
Yeah.
The day is finished. You're tired. You're exhausted.
Yeah.
You've come home.
Yeah.
So, how did today go? Did you get this done? Was that okay? Did you think about that? And we did it to each other.
Yeah.
So we took away like rest time completely.
Okay.
It just became business.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
Yeah.
And that, is a hurdle. The key thing is, when you become an entrepreneur, whether it's with your wife or not,
Mm-hmm.
when you become an entrepreneur, the navigation, the navigation tool that you have when you're an employee of a company is taken away from you.
Yeah.
The navigation tool of when you get to work, when you finish work, what you do when you're at work, what your job roles and responsibilities are.
Yeah.
It becomes freedom in its truest form.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about freedom is everybody wants it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until they get it.
Yeah.
And then when they get it, they realize what it really means.
Yeah.
It means you're responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're responsible not just for your success,
Yeah.
but for everything, every little aspect of this institution that you're trying to create is down to you and your mindset and the way you approach your life.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that, if you don't understand it, and the sooner the better.
Yeah.
It took me about 12 months.
Yeah.
Properly to really get what that meant.
Yeah.
If you don't get that, you're gonna fail completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Until
Nice.
you do.
Yeah.
And you can try again.
Yeah.
Until you do get it.
Yeah.
You need, and I'm talking, you need to really start empowering yourself with a routine.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you've got your intention, then you need to develop a routine that helps you act on that intention. So my routine, every single morning, I get up and I have sacred mornings.
Okay.
I've taken back my rest time. I've taken back my recovery time. I get up at 6 o'clock every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I take the dog out into the back garden
Mm-hmm.
and I meditate for 10 minutes.
Okay, great. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
We've got this beautiful back garden.
Cool.
3 trees in the back garden.
Cool.
It's like being in our own national park.
Nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I make the most of that. Yeah. I sit down and I meditate for 10 minutes.
Okay.
I return to center.
Yeah.
When I'm meditating and being present allows my mind to be cleared of whatever happened the day before. Because every single day is a new day. We all get the same 24 hours.
Yeah.
After meditating and waking up my mind, I then wake up my body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I do yoga
Okay.
for 30 minutes. And I practice mindfulness while I'm doing the yoga.
Okay.
Yeah. This is my practice.
Yeah.
And this is something that everybody needs to understand. Everybody has their own practice and what's
Sure.
good for them. For me, mindfulness, meditation and yoga has been a life changer. This
Cool.
is somebody who used to go to the gym
Yeah.
and work out 4 times a week.
Yeah.
This form of exercise, this form of holistic exercise has done so much more for me
Yeah.
in terms of applications to my wider life
Yeah.
than hitting the gym and smashing circuits ever could.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still do that as well.
Okay.
Once I've finished my yoga, I then read
Okay.
Yeah, I read a book
Yeah.
from an author, from an inspiring person, somebody that I respect, that has been through a similar journey for me, to me, or maybe a completely different journey to me. I read a book for half an hour and I reflect on that book and their journey.
Cool.
Then, if I've got time, I'll write a bit of poetry.
Yeah.
The poetry came from me being open. It's amazing. As soon as I started practicing these sacred routines in the morning, I call them sacred not in a religious way. I call them sacred because rest, what you realize when you become an entrepreneur is rest is so important.
Sure.
So, some of the greats, Winston Churchill, for example, used to take a nap at 2:00 every afternoon. He was running a country during wartime. He was sleeping between 2 and 3. Yeah. This is something I take from my Spanish roots as well.
Sure.
Yeah. The siesta.
Yeah.
Vital.
Yeah.
I still not worked out a way to squeeze that one in yet, but I'm getting there. The point is, rest is vital.
Yeah.
Those sacred mornings are sacred because they empower me to do what I need to do in the business day.
Yeah.
When it's not so holistic and it's not so mindful.
Yeah.
And I'm, getting emails done and I'm going to meetings and, it allows me to really invest in that time and that period. But what that did was make me present and make me aware of the fact that every single day is a new day, as I mentioned before. From starting that process, what I then started to develop was this sense of creativity.
Okay.
And an epiphany came around, which was what my second intention was. My intention isn't only to motivate and engage people into positive practice. It's also to create. In whatever sense, to create. A large part of the joy that I received from setting up my business was the fact that I created something that didn't exist before.
Sure.
It started off in here.
Yeah.
I put it onto a computer in my kitchen.
Yeah.
And then it became a business in the world
that
people that I didn't know were interacting with in lots of different ways. Ways that you can't control. It becomes something of its own.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I started, it was part of my creative time during the morning. I started writing poetry as well.
Cool.
And from that, a lot of things started to come out in terms of my lessons, in terms of my journey, in terms of what was empowering me to continue hitting those brick walls and smashing through them. Because that's the one thing you can guarantee when you become an entrepreneur. There's going to be some very thick, perfectly placed brick walls that you're going to have to run straight through. And you're going to hit them a few times before you muster the strength and work out how to knock them down or walk around them.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I guess there's a lot of things there, but we'll come on to the poetry shortly, which would be interesting. But I guess it's about obviously you've developed a routine. I think from this, it's your early part of the day seems to be quite vital in terms of how the rest goes.
Huge.
Just going back to something which is what a lot of people don't think about perhaps, but is the meditation and sort of the mindfulness. Is that something you've developed yourself or have you learnt it from somebody? How does that work?
So I initially I heard about it on a motivational video because the motivator needs motivating too.
Sure.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I was watching a piece from Tony Robbins. He was talking about the way he starts his day. And he what I found really impressive with his advice was meditation helps him to make decisions.
Okay.
So I found that interesting because I needed to make decisions, setting up a business. So I decided to explore this whole meditation thing. And I found this application on my phone. It's brilliant. So I touched through guided meditation. And I thought, you know what, I'll give it a try. So I committed to it for 30 days.
Okay.
And it was transformative, man.
Sure.
It was completely transformative. It put me in a place where I'm somebody who, I can become excited about the next big thing.
Sure.
I can become excited about the thing that I really want to do that day. What meditation gave me was this awareness of the present moment.
Okay.
And a quietness that I'd not experienced before. In my adult life. it reminded me of how I used to act when I was a child, when maybe I'd be in an assembly at school,
Yeah.
and there'd be a really inspiring speech going on in the assembly from from the teacher, or a guest coming in, and I'd be really present in that room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now I've got those visceral memories of sort of the texture of the carpet, because we used to sit on the floor in primary school. Yeah, the texture of the carpet, as I was touching it and looking to my left and seeing some of the other kids that were like doing their thing, and like really analysing their expression, and really sort of being with them in that moment, and like listening to the speaker. And that level of presence is something that's kind of stripped away from us as we go through the schooling system, and it becomes about the end game, the exams, the results.
Yeah.
So to do meditation was to really take me back to that almost childlike state of presence. And then, you know, when you do that every single day, when you go there every single day, you get to that space. When it comes to those moments of fight or flight, and those decisions where it's live or die, success or fail, in business, to know that tomorrow morning you're still going to have a moment of presence and calmness.
Yeah.
And this morning you had that.
Yeah.
And it was still there after the previous day of difficult decisions.
Yeah.
To have that knowledge and experience of that present moment in the difficult decisions changed the way I made difficult decisions. It changed my state whilst I was making them, and therefore changed the effectiveness of the decisions that I was making.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think it's meditation is a great thing. I think it's about the time to self-reflect, because you can't really change unless you reflect on yourself. You can't really see, and then that then affects your direction and where you're going, obviously. Precisely. So I think it's a great thing. Moving on a bit, I think I'm saying poetry to last. So you talked about public speaking and stuff. Yeah. So you've done some public speaking. Tell us a little bit about that. Where have you been speaking, and what have you been speaking about?
So I've been speaking to people who work with children and young people.
Yeah.
I'm a true believer that if you're going to talk, you need to know what you're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah. If you're going to share a message, you need to understand the message.
Yeah.
And because for the last 3 years I've devoted literally every waking minute of my life to engaging vulnerable children in education, I feel as though I've come to a space where I've got a lot to say on the topic.
Sure.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So this has coincided with me being invited as a keynote speaker and guest speaker to events that address the issue of children that are disengaged from education.
Yeah.
My most recent event was at the University of Manchester, where I was giving a keynote speech to local authorities, social care, voluntary and third sector organisations on how to encourage children with experience of the care system into university. So I was a keynote speaker at this kind of prestigious event at the University of Manchester.
Yeah.
And it was the first keynote speech I'd given. I'd been a guest speaker before, and I'd been on a panel before, but it was the first time it was like Anton Peruga, keynote speaker.
Yeah.
You know, keynote address.
Okay.
Okay. This is formal and significant, a lot more significant than previous events.
Yeah.
And what I found was, whilst I was delivering the talk, and in fact, before delivering the talk, building up to the talk, is I was really thinking about how the audience were going to perceive what I was saying.
Yeah.
And I'd fallen into this trap. Again, it's a trap that we get taught through school. You know, how is the examiner or the teacher going to assess whatever work, talk, writing piece you do? How are they going to see it?
Yeah.
So I went straight into that mode. You know, I need to make sure that, you know, what I say is relevant to the people that are listening. And then literally 5 minutes, I had this pretty much speech written out. 5 minutes before the event, after kind of meeting a few people in the room and looking around, there was just something that came over me, which was, it's not about the perception, it's about the message.
Yeah.
So I scrapped everything that I'd written, apart from the 3 things, which were the 3 pillars to success in engaging young people that we've seen, tried and tested over 3 years, and they definitely work.
Okay.
Which is meeting children where they are,
Yeah.
understanding where they are,
Yeah.
and then clearing a pathway to where they want to be.
Yeah.
Not expecting them to come over to you,
Sure.
you meet them where they are.
Sure.
They're at home, you go and meet them at the home,
Yeah.
and you bring them to the place of education.
Yeah.
Yeah? And the rest of it, the rest of my speech was purely based on what I felt needed to be said about the state of the education system, in the sense of how it deals with, how it caters for and facilitates education for vulnerable children. And it delivered a very, very clear message. What that taught me, what that whole experience taught me was, because it was, it was well received.
Yeah.
Really practice what I preach. Okay. If you're going to deliver a message, and the message that you're delivering is true, firstly, meaningful, and has already had impact, then don't doctor that message for who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure that message is delivered in a way that is then understood.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine.
Cool. Sounds good. So are you planning to do more?
Yeah, so after doing that talk, I've now been invited as a panelist for the University of Manchester Black Law event. They want to encourage Black and ethnic minority students children into education, whether that's the legal profession or some form of higher educational pursuit.
Sure.
And they've asked me to speak as an advocate for somebody who's kind of been through that, having been through university, and sort of qualified to teach.
Brilliant.
And doing what I'm doing now.
That sounds really good. I mean, touching on that subject, with ethnic minorities and entrepreneurship. So obviously we'd both be considered ethnic, if you like.
Definitely ethnic minorities.
I think so. Even under the t-shirt, but yeah. I guess the thing is, it's changed over time. Obviously, when our fathers' generations and generations before us probably had a different entrepreneurial experience, if any, compared to what we're getting today. I mean, where do you think it's at the moment? I mean, are we getting enough opportunities? Are we encouraging people enough? Have we got the right systems around us? Do you reckon, to allow entrepreneurship to flourish?
It's a question. It's a fantastic question. I've got a controversial view on it.
Sure.
As a ethnic minority citizen of Manchester.
Yeah.
The whole point of entrepreneurialism is you leave the system.
Yeah.
You leave the systems that are in place.
Sure.
As I was talking about before, you become free.
Yeah.
Where do I think we're at? Well, let's put it this way. Your father and my father, their generation, first generation immigrants. Yeah. They had physical barriers in place.
That's right.
They had, it was around the time of the Enoch Powell Rivers of Blood speech. Yeah, one drop.
Yeah.
Institutional racism was a physical barrier.
Yeah.
They would walk into a place of work and try to get a job and be turned down without an excuse. They were just told directly, "We don't want your kind working for us."
Yeah.
It was a different time then.
Sure.
The barriers were much more tangible, much more real. Fast forward to 2019 or 2016 when I set up, or 2011. there are barriers there. There are social barriers. Yeah, institutional racism. I actually studied sociology and criminology and wrote my dissertation on black masculinity and its impact on perceptions of success and aspiration, and also crime.
Yeah.
And through that pursuit of academic study, what I saw was that there are some very real, insidious barriers within the system for people of colour, for black and ethnic minority members of our society.
Sure.
However, it's more of a whisper, still damaging and still restrictional, but it's more of a whisper now, whereas before it was a shout.
Sure.
What does that mean? Well, what it means is, like every single entrepreneur, white, black, brown, orange, green, when you take that leap, you're taking a leap into the abyss of barriers and obstacles. An additional barrier and obstacle for us might be the social perception of our race.
Sure.
Might be, in my case, my social demographic, being an inner city kid from Manchester and talking to teachers who have taught, oftentimes, my generation and trying to become a respected figure within education, within this city, as somebody who was essentially a service user for a large proportion of my life. We may have those extra barriers. However, the barriers all the same. The strategy and the approach to getting around those barriers are still the still a level playing field.
Sure.
In a sense of the way I got around the barrier of actually leaving my job and becoming an entrepreneur. Is the same lateral thinking skills that I needed there are the same lateral thinking skills that I need to get around the barrier of being a black and ethnic minority individual. Does that mean that it's fair? Absolutely not. But it doesn't matter what colour you are when you come into entrepreneurship. Things aren't going to be fair. You're putting yourself in a minority of people.
It's true.
So how do I think things have changed? Really, I think things have changed in the sense of there is a lot more opportunity. We live in a place on planet Earth where 95% of the people want to be. That in itself is what you call a privilege. We've got a lot of access to opportunity that people would kill for.
Sure.
When I was 20, one of the best things that I ever did, I went to East Africa. I went to Tanzania. Okay. I spent a month out there taking children from Wood Green in London over to an orphanage in Zanzibar.
Cool.
To mentor the kids in the orphanage. To encourage them to get onto an international film festival stage and perform.
Nice.
Naturally, we took the kids from inner city Wood Green out to Zanzibar, and guess who was doing the mentoring? The kids from Zanzibar. The orphans from Zanzibar were mentoring our kids from Wood Green. Completely flipped over on its head. It was a fascinating experience. The thing that I took from it, was when I was after we'd successfully got all of these kids to perform on the stage, was when I went to a village. It's called Save Our Souls Orphanage and School. And I spoke to a 9-year-old kid. He was doing this amazing piece. So he spoke Swahili. So I go up and like, mambo, poa. Hello. Everyone looks you in the eye, by the way, and smiles. It's not like here where if you look someone in the eye, it's like assault. So, I've gone up to him and I'm like, so how's it going? And he's sat there doing his work. He's 9 years old, same age as my daughter is now. And I say to him, what is it you want to be when you're older? The typical thing that, the party line that you ask kids, that you believe you're supposed to ask kids as a role model in education. What is it you want to be when you're older? And he said to me, he looked me in the eye and he said, I want to go to England.
Okay.
And at that point, it dawned on me the privilege that I was born into.
Sure.
He was working this amazing piece, brilliant piece of writing for a 9-year-old. It was the quality of a GCSE student, 16-year-old GCSE student.
Amazing.
Brilliant piece in a language that wasn't his mother tongue. He's working at this level so he can get to a place that I was born.
Yeah.
And at that stage, I let go of this idea of being hard done to.
Sure.
There are injustices
Yeah.
where I grew up,
Yeah.
where we grew up,
Absolutely.
and where we are now.
Absolutely.
And they're not to be ignored. It's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are to be tackled.
Yeah.
But not for 1 second must we underestimate our power to make the most of this opportunity.
Sure. Agreed. I think there's two things that's come out of that is it's complete mental approach, isn't it? So you've kind of brought these barriers by working on yourself instead of perhaps coming across these barriers and saying, oh, it's because I'm black and I can't get past it now.
Yeah.
We are who we are, and just stick with what you are. Or you like I said, you break down the walls by working on yourself and working on everything around you.
Can I just touch on that a second?
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
biggest barrier that you face, the biggest wall, the biggest obstacle are the excuses.
Yeah, agreed.
Because they're the barriers that you build yourself.
Yeah.
And we've all got an X Factor story, I call it. Yeah, we've all got something that will convince other people that we're hard done by. Yeah. Every single one of us. Yeah. Whether we're part of the 1%, right the way down to, the 90%.
Yeah.
99%.
Yeah.
Those excuses are your biggest enemy.
Yeah.
And if we choose, it's completely, and this is where the freedom comes in. You've got a freedom of choice. You can choose to live with the excuse, encourage the excuse, become attached to the excuse, or go around the excuse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you can progress in your career as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, agreed.
Not just as an entrepreneur, though. I think there's a lesson for that for all of us.
Sure.
A lesson in that for all of us.
I agree. It can be applied in kind of all walks of life, I think. And also, it's like there's always someone worse off than you, and you don't realize it sometimes. Like your trip abroad, it's like you don't realize it until you actually see it.
Yeah.
I remember starting up a while ago, and it's easy to let excuses creep in. When you're on your own and you're starting up on your own, and kind of insecurities start keeping in. Am I doing the right thing? Am I going the right way? No money's coming in. I remember seeing a startup guy who was deaf, and he couldn't speak either, and he's starting up. Yeah. And to all his meeting, he was taking like a translator and a person to sign language. I was just watching. It just took me like 5 minutes to watch him on the floor, having his meeting to realize that I'm pretty much got everything I need.
There you go.
And I can't really make anything as an excuse, regardless of what the reality is. So if I do everything I can do to achieve a goal, then I can ask the question of what's happening. But rarely in the case that I see people do everything that they can do. When I say everything, I mean everything that they can do to achieve something.
You get a new feeling for the word everything.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then have a right to complain. But it's very likely that once you've done everything, you're not going to be complaining.
There you go.
So you've achieved it. So I think that's really important. But yeah, could talk about that quite a bit. Cool. We've been talking for quite a while, so I think we should finally come on to some of your poetry stuff and what's going on with that. So what? So you got into poetry?
Yeah. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
I've started writing poetry.
So what's that journey been like? So what have you got into?
So essentially, I've just been writing poems, and the poems have come from a place that I discovered when I started meditating. Yeah. Would I say I've got into it? I've definitely got into the writing side of it. Sure. But I've decided to stop making excuses and all of those little mental barriers you put into your face. Sure. I came from a place of being a business manager. Yeah. There's nothing poetic about that role. Yeah. For me to come full circle now and finally accept that actually I'm a very creative person. Yeah. And I get joy from writing poetry and reading it. Mm-hmm. It took me this long. I'm 30 years old now. It took me this long to finally get to a space where I was willing to accept that actually put myself out there and be vulnerable and say, cool, I do like writing poetry. I do enjoy reading poetry.
Good stuff.
And that's where I'm up to with it.
Nice. So are you just doing it as a passion right now, just because you love
100%.
it?
Yeah,
That's
passion.
brilliant.
Because the poetry carries a message.
Sure.
And the message is linked very heavily to the work that I've done on myself
Cool.
and the work that my business does with children and young people.
Cool. It reminds me of an interesting story. The guys went out on the Vibe Manchester thing, and what we do is like sometimes we go out and do street interviews with people
Right.
in Manchester.
Yeah.
But the guys found a guy, I think it was in Piccadilly, and it was a homeless poet. So
Right.
the video was a
Wow.
homeless poet, and what he was doing was he was writing poetry and reading it to people instead of begging for money, just like straight begging for money.
Yeah.
So we interviewed him, and his story is quite interesting in itself. That he's one of these people in the homeless situation, which it only took 1 or 2 events for him to get there.
Yeah.
And he was talking about that, but he was quite talented. Like he read one of his poems out.
Yeah.
And he's quite talented in what he does. But I thought poetry is one of them things. I think you have a passion for it and you just do it, and I think you just get into it. It's a great art form to express yourself, in my opinion. But I think are you going to read a poem for us? I believe.
Well, I've just given all that talk on how I'm now putting myself out there, so
uncomfortable
zones.
zones.
I better stick by it.
Cool. No worries. I can call for an audience if you want. And
It's all good.
That's cool.
Feel free to if you want.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's another thing, discovering about my personality. I've never been shy.
Cool.
Yeah, I've always, to be perfectly honest with you, enjoyed the limelight.
Good.
Since from being a child, a baby.
Cool.
Okay, I used to go out on the school assemblies and talk in front of people. It's something I've always enjoyed doing.
Good stuff.
It's only now, as a 30-year-old, that I've decided to start sort of living through that. Yeah. Living through that way of being, which is the way I want to.
Good
as
stuff.
you can see, as I'm turning through the pages, there's quite a few poems in there.
So do you write all your poems in this book then?
I do now, yeah.
Cool.
I've literally taken it that far. I've
Good
got
stuff.
a leather-bound book.
Cool.
Right, you're not a poet, by the way, until you've got a leather-bound book.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got to be, rustic. It's got, it's got to be brown.
You look the part. That's
tea stained. You know what I mean? I tea stained the pages myself. But
cool. So do you just write them and put them in this book, or do you get them out there on social, or do you share them and stuff? Or?
I purely write them when they arrive.
Cool.
I don't. It's amazing because writing this poetry, it wasn't. I used to love creative writing when I was, in school, and even when I was writing essays and stuff like that at uni.
Yeah.
The approach to writing poetry is completely different to the approach to writing any other form of writing that I've done before. Yeah. Because actually, I almost feel as though the poems write themselves, not to get, too, out there. Yeah. But I genuinely feel as though a lot of these poems wrote themselves.
Cool.
So,
good stuff.
There's quite a few poems that I've got in here that apply to this, but I think I'll read 2.
No problem.
Okay.
Read as many as you want.
All right, cool. All right, so this one is titled Greatness. Okay. You'll find it here. Just look through the glass. The image outlined by your silhouette. A soul created by you. For you bring it into existence, whatever it is. So create it. Let history's gravity accelerate your light. Take your heart alone and bind it to many. Show the courage which belongs to you. Grow. Fearful of the travesty of inaction for all else, why not? That's greatness.
Brilliant. So what is that? Does that have a certain inspiration, or?
Yeah, the inspiration was it came from when I won my first contract with Gain Focus.
Cool.
And I'd been told a lot of times that this wasn't going to work from people that normally, previously in my career, people really close to me have encouraged me in the past. And they were like, I think this is a step too far. Yeah. And what I didn't realise at the time was that's just because of the barriers that they put in place for themselves. Yeah. And when I completely smashed those barriers and I won a contract that made Gain Focus a reputable business within the education sector, this came to me, greatness, because actually we all have our own. I'm a true believer that we've all got our own greatness.
Yeah.
That we are put on planet Earth to fulfill.
Sure.
And the only way we bring it into existence, whatever it is by accepting and acknowledging that in order to get there, you need to be vulnerable and you need to take risks.
Sure. That's brilliant.
And that's where this came from.
That's really good. That's really good. There's definitely a talent there. I think it's quite impressive. But yeah, have you got another one? Have you got another one for us?
Got one more.
You're gonna.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll be here all day.
No worries. Are these the first time they're going out?
These are the first time. This is exclusive.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't
Premiere.
think anyone will be interested. But so this is a message from Source. This is the one.
Yeah.
I am you and you are me. I watch you walk through the valley of conceit, sharing half smiles with those who know not even half of themselves. Don't forget me. I lost you at the edge of childhood, staring at your own image of manhood, the intoxicating gravity of the shallow pool, too overwhelmed. How is it you don't see? What deceit led you to imprison your power? Nobody told you you were king, except me. I see you. Degraded, subjugated, and positively discriminated you are but a black man in the eyes of your beholders. I am the sun, concealed in a melanin vessel. What hypocrisy! Bring me back, let me shine, let your beholders know, for I am you and you are me.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Nice. Conversation with the soul.
Conversation with the soul.
Yeah, very deep.
When you asked, yeah, I know. Tell me about it. It could only go in a book like this.
Yeah.
I was asked what it means the other day.
Sure.
And the question kind of took me off guard
Yeah.
because I'd never really prepared an answer.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, really, because that one has a lot of meaning to it. Because actually, what I'm doing there is I'm talking about what the poem's discussing is this image of masculinity that we all take on board.
Yeah.
And I was referring to what it was like when I was in a childlike state, when I was actually a child, and who I was then.
Yeah.
And then staring on the edge of childhood, on the edge of manhood, staring at childhood.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, I think we get to a point in our teens where we begin to take on this adult identity that society's given to us, is prepared for us.
Yeah.
It's this sense of masculinity, What kind of man are you going to be?
Sure.
Yeah, are you going to be a tough man?
Yeah.
Are you going to be, in our case, are you going to be in my side, are you going to be a gangster? Are you going to be a respected man? And how are you going to become those? And society gives you lots of ways and means of achieving those characteristics.
Yeah.
And I discovered through doing this whole process, this self-discovery process of becoming an entrepreneur, I discovered that actually what I'd done for years since I was about 11 is really sort of absorb this intoxicating masculinity. Not toxic, intoxicating.
Yeah.
Because it's persuasive and it gives you a lot of power.
Sure.
But the power is only paper deep.
Yeah.
And it's not until you realise that you've already got a king's wealth of power. You're born with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you just tap into that source,
Sure.
you start to really discover what you're here to achieve.
Cool. Sounds like common sense, but yeah.
It does, doesn't it?
It's something we don't do enough of, probably, is just look inside a little bit and have a positive output.
That's it.
So yeah, no, that's brilliant. I mean, I'd love to keep talking with you, and I'd so many topics. We've only just briefly touched on each of these things, but I think what we'll do in future ones, we'll break it down and maybe talk more in depth about all these things. But
cool.
I think you've been quite inspirational in what you're saying, and hopefully it'll hit home with some people. But yeah, thanks so much. Thank you for gracing us. Yeah,
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Cheers, Tommy.
Awesome. That brings this Vibe Business podcast to a close, but not to worry, the next episode will be out soon. Like, share, subscribe, follow, you know the drill. Thanks for listening.
Game over.